In this video, I'm going to unbox this Samsung QN95A Neo QLED television and explain the picture settings in the user menu. Keep watching. This is the new optical cable for the one connect box, and I see that it has got thicker, which means that it's less likely to fail. And then here we get a traditional remote control, which is still wrapped up because presumably it is less likely to be used. And then here we have the new smart remote from Samsung for the year 2021, and it doesn't require any battery because it can be charged using this USB-C port here. And also I am led to believe that it is solar powered, so if you leave it in a sunlit room, then it will charge itself, which is pretty environmentally friendly if you ask me. And I wonder why no other TV manufacturer has thought of it before. And obviously we have this power cable here, and let's get this out of the way. And yeah, the traditional remote control still obviously needs a pair of AAA batteries, but because we are all very green-minded these days, I'll try not to use that. And this is part of the stand with some screws here. The box out. Make sure that the TV doesn't topple over. And I think that this is probably the new One Connect box, but we shall sort that out later. As I mentioned earlier, this is the brand new One Connect box, which has grown bigger, solid piece of kit. This video is sponsored by Box, the online technology store. Visit box.co.uk for the best deals on TVs, soundbars, and all your other technology needs. So I've finished unboxing and setting up this Samsung QN95A Neo QLED television, and if you don't connect any HDMI sources to the TV, or in fact any sources, I think it will just default to Samsung TV Plus, which is a free TV station service from the South Korean brand, which uses the internet to give you some free channels to watch. But while we are here, what we're going to do is to go into the picture menu and see whether there are any new settings, and I'll try and explain all the picture settings in the user menu. And if I can press the home button and then go across to settings, you can see that it defaults to a standard picture mode, which is the default really, and it is usually far too blue, and normally I would like to change it to either movie or filmmaker mode, which comes closer to the D65 white point that corresponds to the standard used within the film and broadcast industry. And then if we can go into picture settings, brightness will change the light output on this TV. It is similar to the backlight control on previous Samsung TVs maybe years ago, but they have since changed their nomenclature to brightness, and this, if you increase it, will just increase the light output from the screen, and then if you decrease it, it will lower the light output from the screen. So we'll just go back to 21, and then contrast will let you set the digital white level. If you go too high, you may be clipping some whiter than white detail. If you go too low, then you'll be losing dynamic range unnecessarily. So if you just leave it at the default of 45 for now. And then with sharpness, this applies edge enhancement. Color will increase the saturation and luminance of all the colors on screen. Tint will rotate all the hues. And then you can choose whether to apply the picture settings to all sources within this picture mode or just to the current input. And with the picture clarity settings, this contains Samsung's motion settings, and you can see here the default is custom in this movie picture mode, and you can turn it off or you can just choose to select auto, but I think custom would be the most appropriate option for any video enthusiast out there, because it allows you to adjust both blur reduction and shadow reduction independently of each other. Blur reduction will apply motion compensated frame interpolation to high frame rate content, I mean 50 frames per second or 60 frames per second, and then shadow reduction will apply motion interpolation to lower frame rate content, 24 frames per second, 25 frames per second, or 30 frames per second. And with LED clear motion, this will apply backlight scanning or black frame insertion, and normally if you engage it, it will cause some flicker on screen, especially in the brighter portion of the picture, and also the picture will become dimmer as well, but you get increased motion clarity. So this is something that you may choose to experiment yourself, and I shall be testing this more when I review this TV. So I'll turn it off for now because I'm not entirely sure whether this has incurred some flicker from the camera footage. And then under picture clarity settings, you can find the noise reduction control as well, and normally this will obviously suppress any digital noise in the picture, but it will also erase some fine details. So I normally would like to turn it off to, say, keep the film grain intact and also to reduce the incidence of motion smearing. And with local dimming, the default is standard in this particular picture preset, and you need to get 3 levels of low, standard, and high. And I see that in line with EU regulations, you get a prompt every single time you change a setting that affects the energy consumption. And I think, Sony TVs have been affected by this. Sony TVs in the European Union, in fact. And with contrast enhancer, this will apply dynamic contrast to the picture, and what it will do is to generally compress the shadow detail and also the highlight detail to create an S-shaped gamma so that the picture pops a bit more, but it is generally not as accurate to the creative intent. So I generally like to turn it off, because you can obviously get a picture with more pop, but if your shadow detail is slightly crushed or you are losing some highlight detail, then it won't be true to what the directors intend for you to see. With film mode, this will apply film mode interlacing, but it is grayed out at the moment because I'm just playing off Samsung TV Plus, which is from the internet. And then with color tone, this will let you select various color temperature presets ranging from warm to, which is generally the most accurate, to the D65 white point. And then if you go up the scale, it will become bluer and bluer, and cool is generally the bluest. It may be the brightest, but it is generally the least accurate because skin tones will generally become quite pasty. And with white balance controls, if we go into this sub-menu, you can see that there are two options here, the 2-point white balance controls and the 20-point white balance controls. With the 2-point white balance controls, you can see 6 settings here, ranging from red gain, green gain, and blue gain, red offset, green offset, and blue offset. And the gain controls will affect the brighter portion of the image, and the offset controls will affect the darker portion of the grayscale. So you can use this to get your grayscale roughly in line before proceeding to the more precise 20-point white balance controls. And you can adjust this at 5% video stimulus intervals, ranging from 5% all the way up to 100%. And if we get out from here, obviously I think these white balance controls in the user menu are only useful if you are planning to calibrate this TV manually. I think with the QN95A and also the step up 8K sets, the QN800 and also the QN900, because of the presence of the One Connect box, I hope that there is a way for us to perform Kalman AutoCal, which is more straightforward and a bit easier in the sense that you can use direct display control or DDC to make settings changes from your laptop, so no user menu will come out on screen, and therefore it won't mess with the readings from your meter. And then with gamma, this will dictate how the input signal is being translated to the light output on screen, especially in terms of the midtones. And BT1886 is generally the most accurate for SDR or standard dynamic range content. In a bright room, you may want to go up to 2.2, and interestingly, Samsung is only allowing for 2 choices here. But clearly, you can also increase it or decrease it. And increasing means brightening the gamma, and decreasing it means darkening the gamma. Let's leave it at 0 for now. I'll do all the measurements when I properly review this television. With shadow detail, this will manipulate the near black gamma. So if you think that your shadow detail is too dark, you can increase the shadow detail to try and brighten up the dark detail, but this may also cause the picture to look a bit washed out, especially in dark scenes. Or if you think that your shadow detail is too bright, you can just drop it down. And with Rgb Only Mode, this will apply a color filter. It is sort of a digital color filter. I don't know whether many of you still remember the color filter that is included with, let's say, the Digital Video Essentials or DVE test disc and many other discs, including maybe the Spears and Munsell, the HD benchmark disc. And this is the digital version, which is more accurate to let you check color decoding. But I think, in this day and age, especially if you are getting your TV calibrated, these are generally not necessary, because, all these color decoding issues hopefully should be sorted out at factory. But if it is slightly off, you can always use the calibration software or AutoCal to try and sort it out. With color space settings, the default is auto, which is generally accurate for most content. What this will mean is that the TV will be detecting the info frame of the incoming video signal and then apply the correct color space to the content for mapping purposes. But if you so wish, you can choose to expand the color gamut to the native color space of this TV, which is generally quite wide and would be inaccurate for SDR content. Or you can choose to go into Samsung's color management system by selecting color space custom, and you can adjust the 3 primary colors of red, green, and blue, and the 3 secondary colors of yellow, cyan, and magenta. And under each color, you can adjust 3 parameters, namely red, green, and blue. So I would say that this is an RGB-based color management system, which is different from the HSL-based color management system employed by, in fact, most other TV manufacturers. And there is nothing to say that one is superior to the other, but I think HSL is more intuitive. You just read the graph, and if hue has an error, you just adjust the hue setting. Whereas with this, you probably have to experiment a bit more to decide whether to increase or decrease green, blue, red, in equal fashion or not. And anyway, if you use AutoCal, maybe this can be sorted without you needing to know anything with regards to what the settings does. And with reset picture, obviously this will reset the picture mode to the factory default setting. And I don't see a game mode here because Samsung generally put their game mode into the general menu, and then under external device manager you can engage game mode, and more likely than not it also supports ALLM or auto low latency mode, so it will automatically switch into game mode with the Xbox Series X and also the PS5 console. And input signal plus is generally also one of the things that you don't need to worry about, because I think Samsung TVs are generally very clever in engaging this input signal plus option. And what this does is to step it up to support HDMI 2.1 rather than leaving it at maybe HDMI 2.0 or even worse, HDMI 1.4 for legacy device compatibility. And generally the TV should sort it out. Sometimes you can see the TV doing some sort of scanning when you plug a new input source to the television. This is what it's doing. It's just deciding on whether to use HDMI 2.1 or HDMI 2.0. And these are generally handled automatically by Samsung QLED TVs, including this new QLED television. And then if we go into the power and energy settings, there is something that you probably would need to disable to get an accurate picture, because I think if the brightness optimization is engaged by default, then what this will do is to automatically change the picture on screen depending on the ambient light that is detected in the room. So I would suggest turning this off after acknowledging the warning. And then you can see here that because the remote is solar powered, so you have to charge it either by USB or by sunlight, there is an indicator that tells you how much battery is left here. So I'll be spending the next couple of weeks testing and reviewing this television. If you have any questions about this TV, or if there's anything in particular that you would like us to test, feel free to leave a comment in the YouTube section below. If you would like to watch more of our videos on 2021 televisions, I've created a playlist here if you'd like to click on it, and I will see you in the next video.